introduce himself, please?
Hi, my name's Luke. I used to be a black belt anarchist. I spent a lot of time being very angry about stuff. Saw a lot of injustice in the world, and I like to say no to things mainly. But the main focus was the desire to change things that I saw as things I didn't like or things I wanted to be done differently. And the time I spent in the movement, I felt a little bit out of place. That's been in Scotland, to the Glen Eagles protests against the G8. I've kind of started to look for other ways to kind of achieve change, and I've looked at art as being what I saw the best method for that. So I decided to do a foundation. I left the squat that I lived in, moved back in with my parents. It was much nicer there. I still had the dreadlocks, I still had the anger, and I still had the bongos. But I ended up on the way to Norwich to study visual studies. And it kind of became a massive process of change for me. I studied visual studies. It was a course that allowed me to do film work, installation art. I did some events production. I was famously the guy who said we shouldn't spend thousands of pounds on our degree show because of the poverty and problems in the world. And later on, 3 years later, through the massive period of change that I went to, I was the guy who project managed a graphic design and spent £5,500 on our degree show catalogue, which kind of exemplifies how much of a change I went through in terms of stopping to say no to things and kind of opening my mind and my eyes to things that I wanted to say yes to. It was a huge, huge transformation, and most of the people who are still involved in the movement that I go back to see, they don't really recognise me anymore. It might be because of the dreadlocks and stuff. But I left college and I went to work at the Playhouse Bar, where I had the luxury of being surrounded by a lot of very creative people and had the support to explore all the creative avenues that I kind of went down through visual studies. Even further, I tried to be visualised. I did some commissions. You can see one of my commissions is still the tables on the terrace of the Playhouse Bar. I painted all of those in the freezing cold winter, and I did this commission with someone else for the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital. But as I did it, it's still, as when I was doing politics, there was still something that didn't quite fit for me, and that I was always conscious of, that it didn't feel right. It wasn't the skin I wanted to be in. But whilst I was working at the Playhouse and after I graduated, I was involved with a group of 8 people who set up the gallery and art studios on Fishergate. This is me sawing a very wonky line through a piece of board which we never used. We took an old handbag factory and we transformed it into a horrible gallery space, which is available for really affordable rates. Over 20 art studios which are incredibly affordable, and what we believe are the first ever publicly accessible screen printing studios in the city. And this is what it looks like. If you haven't been to it, come and see me afterwards. I'll give you a number, we can arrange tours. If you haven't seen it, it's literally around the corner, it's on Fishergate. It's the only thing on Fishergate though, that's why most people don't know we're there. As I was working there, I carried on working as a visual artist, but this kind of led me into events production or just kind of management of arts instead. I tried to be a musician as well. I was in the band Spider for 7 years as a founding member, but again, it still didn't quite fit. Between song banter was appalling. I dedicated a song once to my girlfriend's abscess, which didn't go down well. So one of the things I carried away from visual studies was graphic design, and I got to use that a lot at Stew for poster design. Poster design is something I really love, but also for another element of the events management side of thing that I've gone to, which was putting on gigs with bands from around the world. We've got Frank Fairfield, Trembling Bells, David Thomas Broughton, all sorts of people, and putting them on with local musicians to kind of start building links between the people who are starting to get to where the more established artists are, but also to put Norwich on the touring circuit for bands that aren't big enough to pay the Arts Centre or the Waterfront. And I've been doing that for nigh on 3 years now with Rosalind Coleman and it used to be like Russell involved as well. But that kind of cemented my idea that I wanted to facilitate things happening rather than be the person that was doing them myself. So through doing Stew and for Presents, I was approached to the gallery that runs the world, which is called Art in Emery. We've been going for 2 years. Our next opening is on May 5th. It's our 2nd year anniversary. And I'm responsible for selecting the art. I manage the events that happen in the space at the gallery openings. We have a band that somehow links to the art and a DJ that somehow links to the art as well. And what's really nice is people come along and they see something or they hear something that they wouldn't have already seen before. It's kind of really important to me to explore the links that things have that aren't always obvious. Our opening night started off with about 5 people, now we have about anywhere from 50 to 100 people for our opening night. It moved me on further into events production. I worked on this, which is Dining with Alice. That's part of the Norwich Festival. It's a show for 256 people a night over 8 days, outdoors, including a 4-course meal with roving characters from Alice in Wonderland. And I was the trainee assistant producer, and that led, as I keep going on this path, this is all in the space of less than a year, to me working on the Oh Fuck Moment, which is a show by Hannah Walker and Chris Thorpe. We won a Fringe first at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I was the set dresser and graphic designer for this show. And that kind of really cemented that I wanted to get involved in the background of things and the organisation of things. That kind of led on to this year. I'm now full-time freelance. I work for the Norwich Playhouse. I'm currently working on new logo design, new brochure and new website designs for them, amongst all the filing that I do as an administration assistant as well. But the biggest project I'm working on at the moment is a project called Beta, which is for the Norfolk Norwich Festival. It's a week-long series of live art, performance, theatre and dance in a soon-to-be-announced secret venue. I'm a producer. I'm working with the Norfolk Norwich Festival on it. We've got Arts Council funding. It happens on the 19th and 26th of May. We've got emerging artists from the region performing alongside established artists from outside the region, and we want to forge some links so we have a legacy beyond the end of the festival. There's 2 things which I live by, which have come through from the politics that I started out with, and that's if you don't see what you want to see happening in the environment that's around you, start making it happen. It's not difficult, you just need to begin, you find like-minded people, and you can end up turning a handbag factory into a studio, you can turn a cellar into a gallery, you can run an event for 256 people a night in the middle of nowhere. And that's why it's realistic to demand impossible, because things can happen on next to no budget. Things can happen when you don't think there's any audience for those things to happen, but often it's just a case of needing someone to light the touch paper and things just go from there. Thanks very much.